Alright, Loki Season 2, Episode 2 has dropped on Disney+. I'm sorry I didn't get this video up last night. I just had a long day and I wanted to go to sleep. But now let's talk about this with spoilers, so spoiler warning. If you have not yet watched Loki Season 2, Episode 2, and you plan on it, as always, do not watch this video because I will be talking about what happens in this newest episode in detail. If you have watched it or you don't care, then stick around. You're all good. Okay, let's get started. So this episode starts off with Loki and Mobius on a mission. They're tracking down Hunter X5. Alright, so we remember at the end of the last episode, Hunter B-15 and that other dude, they saw Dox and a couple of other hunters going somewhere, and I was confused. I was like, what's that all about? This episode, I am glad to say, cleared quite a few things up for me, actually. Because if you remember from last week, I was pretty lost after the first episode, and I said I hope the rest of the season clears things up, and now this second episode certainly has. So thank you, Episode 2. So yeah, we tracked down Hunter X5, who has made a new life as an actor in the 70s named Brad Wolfe. He was probably trying to beat Brad Pitt to the punch. And so they bring him into the TVA, and now we're playing the interrogation game. So this first interrogation scene, right? I really gotta give props to Rafael Casal as X5. Because he does a really good job as a prisoner who is just giving them everything. He doesn't want to talk, so he's trying to play them, trying to get under Loki's skin, successfully getting under Mobius' skin. I was like, damn, look at this dude coming in and stealing this episode. A little over a week ago, I didn't even know who this guy was. Now I'm looking forward to seeing him in more things. And so after Mobius loses his shit, we have the scene where he and Loki are just sitting down and talking in the green room with pies. And at first I was like, all right, this is kind of slow and kind of boring. But then you actually listen to what they're talking about, and Mobius actually says that he doesn't care about the previous life he had on the timeline. I do find that interesting. Because after season 1, we were all obsessed. We were like, oh man, we gotta get Mobius back on his jet skis. Even last week, we saw that he does still love the concept of jet skis, but now for him to say that he doesn't really care about his previous life, I'll be honest, I kind of hope that doesn't last. Cause we all know that we want to see Mobius' story end with him happily on his jet ski, and I am pretty sure that is eventually gonna happen. I mean, I'm not 100% certain, but alright, moving on. I do love this. So round 2 of interrogation, in a good old switcheroo in which I knew exactly what they were doing. Like Loki locks the door on Mobius and Mobius is like, hey, this isn't what we discussed. I was like, yes, it is. Yeah, I knew that it was all planned out from the beginning. And so Loki plays bad cop, which I thought was pretty cool. He's got this device which creates like these time cubes, or whatever those are, just cubes, that condense and get smaller and crush things that are inside them. So he uses that on Brad, and eventually it finally works. Yeah, I like that because I like seeing Loki show his slightly more villainous side. That's the cool thing about Loki as a protagonist, is that we've seen him be a good guy and a bad guy, so he can be both. He can kind of lean on the side of moral ambiguity. Can't really say that about any other protagonist in the MCU. It's almost like Loki is a kind of anti-hero, and I think that's pretty neat. It's unique. Meanwhile, we have B-15 and Casey going to visit OB about the temporal loom. Couple of things to say about this scene. First of all, I love how Casey freaks out when he learns that OB is the one who wrote the TVA guidebook. And he's like, oh my god, you're Ouroboros, can you sign mine? And he's like, yeah, sure. I don't know, I just like that. I thought it was funny. But more importantly, we learned that in order to fix this thing, we need someone with the same temporal aura as the founder of the place, aka He Who Remains, who's dead. And they say they need Miss Minutes to fix it, but going back to that though, they need the temporal aura of He Who Remains, right? So if I'm thinking ahead, I'm guessing that all of He Who Remains' variants share the same aura, right? They have the same kind of DNA or temporal stamp. So I'm guessing this is where Victor Timely's gonna come in, right? Like they're gonna get back to Mobius and Loki and be like, hey, we need someone with that time aura. And so Mobius and Loki are gonna go on a mission to find Victor Timely, and we're gonna get to the post-credit scene from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And I'm guessing this is gonna be the reason for it, because we need his temporal aura. I don't know for sure though, it's just a wild guess, but I think I'm right. I don't know though, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. Getting back to this episode though, Mobius and Loki and X5, aka Brad, they go to the McDonald's in Oklahoma in 82 to find Sylvie. And so yes, Loki reunites with Sylvie. And it's all awkward, the emotions are there because of their last interaction. And I am glad that the paid promotion is not all in our faces. I mean, I guess it is a little bit when Mobius is like, I want to try some apple pie. But other than that, we're good. And again, with this episode clarifying things from last week, when Loki's talking to Sylvie about what he saw when he was in the future last week, he saw Sylvie in the elevator, we remember, and he's like, I was in the future, you were there. And so we need to stop whatever that was from happening. I was like, Okay, now I think I get it. Something bad was happening in the future, I'm not sure what, but we're trying to prevent that. Alright, cool. And of course, Sylvie's like, no, I want nothing to do with this, because she's living her best life working at a McDonald's. Hey, whatever makes you happy. But then we learn from X5 that the reason he's so jumpy here is because he knows what Dox is doing. Judge Dox, who's played by that one woman from Game of Thrones, and a million other things. I've seen that face so many times. Yeah, so we remember last week that pruning was officially, like, stamped out. They're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. But Dox here, she's like, no, we're still gonna do that. So it's a mutiny, essentially. She and a bunch of her hunters have gone rogue. That's why they were going through that door at the end of the first episode where B-15 saw them. All this to try to find Sylvie? Nah, I don't buy that. So yeah, they weren't trying to find Sylvie, they're pruning innocent timelines. They're going rogue. Okay, yeah, I get that now. Thank you, this episode, for clearing that up for me. And so we put a stop to it. And we bring them all in, including Dox herself. Although I guess a few of her hunters did escape. So maybe we'll have to track them down later as well. I don't know though. Although after that we come back to see the damage that was done. We see all these timelines that were pruned, and B-15 is like, those were people. I was like, not just people, those were entire universes. Yeah, timelines equals universes in the multiverse. They were just obliterated because Dox was on He Who Remains' side. She's a villain. So yeah, that sucks ass. And it's because of that that Sylvie's like, this is the best you could do. And we know that Sylvie and Mobius and Loki and the rest of them, they are on the same side. They want the same thing. They want free will for everyone, I think. But I guess Sylvie's like, nah, just fuck you guys. You're not doing a good enough job, so lack of faith. And so she bounces. She goes back to her home on the branch timeline at McDonald's, where the last thing we see is that she still has He Who Remains' TemPad. I'm not sure why yet, but it must be important for something. In the end, this episode was a lot better than the first one, if you ask me. It cleared a lot of things up. I'm now way more on board with the season, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Sylvie does next, and the mission to go track down a variant of He Who Remains. That's got me excited. Alright, now I'm gonna wrap this video up, because as I've been filming this, there's been a lawnmower going outside, and my mic's been picking it up, and it's been pissing me off. Talk about your Friday the 13th bad luck. I should have filmed this last night. Oh well, live and learn. So, Loki Season 2, Episode 2, Breaking Brad. Have you watched it yet? What are your thoughts on it? And what are your theories and predictions for next week? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!